Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Quest for Truth. This week we are looking at Luke chapter 17, verses 22 through 37. And it's a continuation from last week. It's really the beginning of the kingdom with the second coming. And so last week we kind of finished by looking at the kingdom, and Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees. And he says that the kingdom is in your midst. The kingdom is those people who are following me and doing my will. And so as we follow Jesus and as we do his will, we are partaking in the kingdom of God that is here. But yet that's not the full story of the kingdom of God. And so that's where we pick up here in verse 22. So now Jesus turns and he is now speaking to his disciples. And he says, "The days will come when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. They will say to you, 'Look there, look here.' Do not go away, and do not run after them. For just like the lightning, when it flashes out of one part of the sky, shines to the other part of the sky, so will the Son of Man be in his day. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation." And so Jesus is explaining the difference here. The kingdom is in our our obedience, in our hearts, and as the not fully realized kingdom. But yet he's saying that there is more to this kingdom. And in fact, there's going to come a day when you're going to desire to see the Son of Man, but I won't be there. And he says that there's going to be people coming who say, "Look here, look there." But he says, don't go away. Don't follow them. Don't follow the people who are trying to pull you away. Stay faithful to Jesus. And it's interesting too, because that look there, look here is quite similar to in the last passage we looked at in verse 21, right? But he says the signs, there won't be there's not signs of the kingdom that's here currently, right? They won't say, "Look, here it is," or "There it is." And now he's saying, those people who are trying to, bring this false kingdom, trying to attract you away from Christ, will say, "Look there, look here. I have the kingdom." And so it's this false idea of the kingdom, this false messiahs, false teachers will come. Antichrist will come and try to lead you astray. But he says, don't follow them and stay faithful to Jesus. And then he says, the return of the Son of Man will be like the lightning, and the lightning flashes from one part of the sky to another. And in that day when he returns, it will be, it'll be quick, right? Lightning flashes in the blink of an eye. If you blink, you miss it. But yet, it's also obvious. If you've ever been in a thunderstorm, and even if you're in the house, as long as your windows are open, if it's dark and that lightning flashes, it lights up the house. You can't miss it. You will see it. And so the Son of Man will come in a quick moment, and it will be obvious. He says, but first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. And he's talking about, as we've the same thing that we've talked about throughout the book of Luke. He's walking towards Jerusalem. We repeated that. Luke's repeated that multiple times. And so this is just, him going to Jerusalem. And in some way he's already been rejected. He's already faced the rejection of the the religious leaders. And so he's already walking kind of towards Jerusalem, already having been rejected, but he's walking to his crucifixion. He's walking to the beating and the mocking, and he is going to face that. He's going to bear that suffering, be rejected by this generation. And that right there is talking about, at the time, right? The people at the time rejected Jesus. They claimed him as their Messiah, and as he entered into Jerusalem, and then they rejected him because he didn't bring them what they wanted. And yes, it's true that certainly means their generation. But when we look forward in this passage, when we look to the following verses, we realize it's not just that generation, right? It's the following generations. And so it continues in verse 26. And just as it happened in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. And so this is really, in between the days of the Son of Man, is saying from this rejection, the crucifixion, until his return, what will it be like? Well, it'll be like the days of Noah. And what was happening in the days of Noah? They were eating and they were drinking and they were marrying, they were being given in marriage. And, it's kind of confusing a little bit because those are all good things, right? Eating is necessary, drinking is necessary. We're told to, to marry, to be fruitful and multiply. And so how are those wrong things? Well, it's because there's no sight of God here. They're all ignoring God. Their focus is on themselves, and they're rejecting him. And so that rejection, and we'll see it again with Lot here in a minute, but that rejection of him is continued, is carried out from, the first time, really. Not really the first time, but kind of the main time in this generation, being the generation of Jesus and the apostles, with the crucifixion. But then it continues, it carries out through all of those who reject him, who don't look to him, who don't believe in him, who go about their lives without looking at him. We looked at the 10 lepers. We saw the 10 lepers last week, and think about those 9 lepers who were healed by Jesus, and then they went their own way and weren't thankful. And look at our generation. We have, you talk about nature and the natural world, and we look out and we see such great wonders and just awesomeness, and yet so many people will put that up to, oh, well, it's just by chance, evolution, it just happened. But it's such a rejection of God to say that all of those things just happened. He created them. He created the world. He created you. He created me. He created all of us to do his will. And when we reject him, and when we look to other methods of how creation began, you just see a rejection of him, and just a just a mockery, a slap in the face to God of saying, well, he's not real, he didn't do anything, but yet we see a creation that only he could have done. Evolution doesn't stand up to reality. Only a God who is all-powerful and could create such a large, vast universe and such an intricate design. And we see that design all throughout. In every form of science, we see design after design that all points to God, and yet we go about our days in ignorance, ignoring him. And that's how many people live, just as in the day of Noah. Until, picking up in verse 27, halfway through until the flood came back a little bit. Until the day that Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. So we see this. Noah entered the ark, and then the flood came. And we'll get into that, what that means in a little bit more. But let's look at Lot first. Because it was the same as what happened in the days of Lot. They were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planting, they were building, they were doing all of these things. They had everything under control. They had their plans set. But on the day that Lot went out from Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. And in each of these stories, we see two things, or maybe three, I guess. We talked about in depth of the rejection of God. But then after that, we see these two things, right? We see this removal. We see, with Noah, he entered the ark. Until Noah entered the ark. And then we see, but on that day that Lot went out from Sodom. And so you see this salvation, you see this waiting until these people are called out, Noah and his family, or Lot and his family. And then what comes? Judgment follows. With Noah, it was the flood that wiped out the inhabitants of the earth, except for Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. Only 8 people survived that judgment. And the same as with Lot and Sodom. Lot and his wife and daughters get outside of the city. And then judgment came upon. God brought judgment upon Sodom, and it rained fire and brimstone, and it destroyed all who were in Sodom. So he brought Lot out. He saved him from the judgment. He protected him. And then he brought judgment upon Sodom. And it will be just the same on the day that the Son of Man is revealed. It'll be the same. God will call out those who are his. He will protect his people. He will protect those who are in his kingdom, in what's called the rapture, taken from, the Greek word rapture, which means taken out or called out. And that's what we're talking about here. And it's more, clear in other places, but that's what we're seeing. This same idea that's going to happen when the Son of Man is revealed. His people will be called out, raptured out, and then judgment will come upon the earth. God will bring judgment, and that's exactly what we see. When we look in Revelation, we see the judgment that is poured out on the earth during the tribulation. And it's a righteous judgment. It's, there's nothing wrong with that judgment. It is deserved. And it's a judgment that all of us deserve. But yet we have turned to Christ for our salvation, to be called out from not just this judgment, but from eternal judgment. And it continues, on that day, the one who is on the housetop and whose goods are in the house must not go down to take them out. And likewise, the one who is in the field must not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. And so, we talked about Lot, and I said him and his wife and his daughters were brought out of Sodom. But if you remember the story, there's more to it, and that's what here. Remember Lot's wife. She turned around and she looked back. And it wasn't just a glance to see what had happened. It wasn't just kind of a casual, acknowledgement of what was going on. It was a look of, that's my people. That's where I belong. That's where I desire to be. And so that's what it's saying here. It's, don't get attached to this world. Don't become one with this world. As followers of God, as sons of God, we are not of this world. So don't get attached to it. When he comes, we're not going to be able to take anything with us. So don't get attached to it. Use what you have. God has given us what we have, and we should be good stewards of all that we have. But don't get so attached to it that when he comes, your first thought is, wait a minute, I need to take this with me. No. Because that just says that you're of the world, and we're not called to be of the world. And verse 33 says, whoever seeks to keep his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. And how do we lose our life? Well, it's our dying with him in salvation. As he died on the cross, we partake of that death in salvation. And we see that in baptism, when you put under the water, you died to the old sins and to the old self, and you're raised in the newness of life. And that's what happens symbolically in baptism, is what happens really in salvation. When we place our faith in Jesus, our old self is put to death. And that death continues because, we still have our flesh. And so we need to continue to put that old self to death. But in eternity, it has been put to death. But we need to continue in that. And it says, I tell you, on that night there will be two in one bed. One will be taken, and the other will be left. There will be two women grinding at the same place. One will be taken, and the other will be left. And so there'll be, some will be taken, some will be raptured, taken to be with Christ. Those who are his, those who believe in him, and those who are not will be left to face the judgment on this earth. And in answering, the disciples replied to him, where, Lord? And he said to them, where the body is, there also the vultures will be gathered. And this idea of the vultures gathering, when you see vultures flying around, that there is a dead animal or a dead body where they're flying. And so really this idea is that it will be obvious. It'll be obvious. You'll see it. You're not going to miss it. There is no way to miss this. When Jesus comes, it will be the most obvious thing to have ever happened, and you can't miss it. If you're, you can't miss the rapture if you're a Christian. And if you're not a Christian, you'll know what happened. You will understand what happened. You will walk in the judgment. You will see it. But for the Christians, we won't face that judgment. We're we're not under God's wrath. Jesus has taken that all, and we can't miss it. We will be with him in heaven when it comes upon the earth.